Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
I came from Studio City. I am directionally challenged. I swear to you, when Bara called, thank you for asking me to come here, Bara. We left Tuesday morning. And the way she called was very lovely. My phone rang and I went hello and I heard, "I need you!" Excuse me? "I need you!" Okay, that's nice, but who are you? "This is Bara. My speaker is in Japan." Oh, okay, what does that mean? I need you in Malibu." All right. Because I'll go to any length. And I get lost in Studio City. I have no sense of direction. So Bara said, and this afternoon, I spoke in San Gabriel, where no Jew has ever. I'm talking John Deere caps. I'm talking tool belts and stuff, you know. And I said to Bara, I'm speaking in the afternoon in San Gabriel, so I don't think I could. And she went, "No, I know it'll take, where do you live, Studio City?" 41 minutes. I go to a lot of jazz clubs there. It takes 41 minutes, there'll be no traffic. Bara, are you an Al-Anon by any chance? Okay, I'll come. So she gave me directions and she gave me the address, and what I did was I immediately went to the Thomas Brothers book and ripped the page out and put it in my printer and made it big. And I put it on the living room floor and I stared at it for a long time. Then, because I'm an alcoholic, I went to the computer and I went right to Yahoo Travel directions. And that gave me a whole other set of directions. Then I went to Expedia Travel. I have no sense of direction. And as I said, we left Tuesday. We stayed at 3 Howard Johnson's. We ate a lot of meals. But I got here. We were horribly lost here on the way here. Horribly. My hand to God. There's no lights anywhere. And on Pacific Coast Highway, we found that Zumeria, something... Zoomeren, Zoom Golly Golly, I found, whatever it is, I found that street, and then it came to a dead end. And I said to my wife, Mitzi, I said, "Where is the card with Bara's directions?" And she said, I think I threw it out once we got to Zoomeria or something. And I said, "Well, how do we get there?" And a man came from nowhere with an orange cap. I think it was him. He came, a man showed up at the card, stuck his head in the window and said, "Can I help you?" And I thought, that's unbelievable. That's wonderful. God has a southern accent. And he said, "Where are you going?" And I said, "To the meeting." And he said, "Well, like what meeting?" And I said to myself, should I break my anonymity? And I said, "Yeah, the AA meeting." He said, "Oh, I don't know where that is." And I said, "I'm supposed to bear right, and I don't know where to go." And then Mitzi found the card. And can I have a round of applause that I made this meeting tonight? Oy. Something they never heard in San Gabriel. Okay, I was born an alcoholic. I didn't have my first drink till I was 35 years old. I was a very late starter. I didn't have a drink because I knew that when I was a little kid, you probably can't tell this, but I'm from Brooklyn, because I know I lost my accent. So I'll tell you up front, I'm from Brooklyn. When I was a kid in Brooklyn, everybody was chug-a-lugging beers and stuff. I knew that if I took a beer or a drink, I was going to like it because I had obsessive behavior. If I found a pair of Keds sneakers that I liked, I spent a long time trying to figure out how I can get 6 more pairs of that same sneaker in case the other 5 pair wear out. So I knew that if I had a drink, I was going to obsess on it, and I never, ever, ever touched alcohol. I had my first drink at 35 years old on a cruise ship. Mitzi and I were working on the cruise ships. We worked on the Sitmar lines before they became Princess Cruises for 5 years. And when you work on a ship for 5 years, you become best friends with the crew, you know? And I hated the passengers. I didn't even ever relate to them. The passengers are all a pain in the ass on a cruise ship. They all look alike, they dress alike, they all have the one pair of white pants with the big, thick white belt. They have promenade wear. And they all ask the same questions. Excuse me, what time is the midnight buffet? I never bothered with the passengers. The crew were my friends. And one day the captain of the ship, Luigi Nappa, who's still a good friend, all Italian crew, he called me into his quarters and he said, Charlie, you have got to stop smoking marijuana in your cabin. See, I didn't drink, but I found other stuff, you know, to tide me over. And I said, Nappa, nobody knows I smoke dope in my cabin. I mean, it never occurred to me why I would hear passengers outside when I was smoking a joint go, Can we come in for the party? And he takes out a stack of papers that high, and he says, you know what these are? These are reports from the firemen. Those little Italian men, those old men that run up and down the aisles of the ship. They're making out reports. They don't know what it is you're doing in there. They think it's like some kind of religious ceremony. But you have got to stop smoking dope in your cabin. Now, I know you're not going to give it up, he said, because you're a weird person, you don't drink, so, you know, you do what you do. Take your joint up to the promenade deck, smoke it out there in the open. I said, won't anybody know? He says, no, these people are, you know, back in the 70s when I'm talking about, the passengers were old. They were on the original Noah's Ark, these people. So I take my joint up on the promenade deck, and I'm smoking, and I'm cupping it, and I'm hiding it, and I felt just like I did in PS 108 in Brooklyn when you smoked in the men's room, and you didn't want the teacher to see it. And I thought, you know, what am I doing? What am I doing? I'm 35 years old. What am I cupping a joint like a moron? I don't want to be a putz. I can have a drink now. I'm a grown-up. I'm a man. I'm going to have a drink. And my voice got lower, and I went down to the bar. Yes. And I said to the bartender, my friend Giancarlo, and I said, Giancarlo, I want a drink. And he reached for the Diet Coke, and I went, no, 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 no. I want a drink, a John Wayne drink. And he said, what are you drinking? And I had no idea. And I looked, and I said, Giancarlo, this is a sign from God. Look at this. We're on a ship, and there's a bottle with a ship on it. That's what I'm supposed to drink. So he reached for the Cutty Sark, and he said, okay, what do you want with it? I said, a glass would be nice, a glass. And I never had a drink before. This was going to be my first one, a grown-up drink, but I knew no ice. I said no ice, because I know, I knew ice melts and becomes water. And that wouldn't be good for the drink. So he poured the little drink, and I went, no, up to the top, up like in the movies, but right up to the top of the glass. So he poured me a big, tall tumbler of Cutty Sark, and I said, excuse me, I'll be right back. I went to my cabin. I had 2 joints and a Quaalude. In case that Cutty Sark wasn't going to work, I wanted to be prepared. So I get back up. My drink is waiting for me, and I take it, and I drink it. And you know what it was like. I found mother. It was wonderful. No choking, no gagging. I drank it. It went down nice and easy. It was warm. It was wonderful. And I drank the whole thing, not but just like slowly and nicely. It was absolutely heaven. Where was this stuff all the time? And I said, let me have another one. I'll be right back. Went to my cabin, smoked another joint, took another Quaalude, because so far that Cutty Sark stuff wasn't doing the job. So I went back up, And as I sat down to drink my second drink, I got a little tingle here on the right side of my mouth, which was going to be my barometer for many years to come. You know that little tingle you get here? Okay, you got it on the left side. I got mine on the right side. So, I took my second drink, and I drank it, and it kicked in, along with the Quaaludes and the joints. And I absolutely felt wonderful. And I said, let me have another drink. And there was a passenger sitting here, and I looked, and I said to her, hello. How are you? Like I gave a damn for that moment, yeah. And she said, I'm fine. And I said, what's your name? And she said, Betty Jean, Billy. Everyone had two names on the ship. Betty Billy, Billy Harry. And I said, well, that's nice. And there was a guy sitting here, and I said, hello. I was friendly. I cared whether they lived or died, these two people. And I said, what's your name? And he said, Billy Bob. And I said, did you know Betty Harry? And Harry, do you know Betty Billy? And would you like a drink? And I bought drinks for the ship. I bought drinks for every ship that was cruising on the ocean at that moment. It was the most wonderful thing in the world. And the tickle got good here. And I kept drinking, and it was wonderful. And from that day on, my hand to God, I was never, ever without a glass of booze in my hand. Ever. Because my wife and I, we used to do a comedy act a long, long time ago. And in those days, we played Las Vegas and Reno and Tahoe and blah, blah. But in those days, when you played Vegas, you got dressed up when you performed. I used to wear a tux, and Mitzi wore a gown, and the people in the audience wore, tuxes and gowns and suits, and it really looked swell. And I remembered looking at people who drank. It scared me. The ladies all used to come beautifully made up and coiffed and their gowns, and by the third drink, their faces fell down. And the guys, their ties got a little askew. Their ties were in their drinks, and they started to get loud, and it scared me. That was for losers. I had my joints, my Quaaludes. Losers. But when we played Vegas, that was the time of the Rat Pack, my idols, Frank and Sammy and Dean and Peter, all those guys, and they had drinks in their hands on stage. And they talked about it, and their whole act was about drinking. And my wife even at one time said to me, I don't trust a guy that doesn't drink. I'm not blaming you. Yes, I am blaming you. Look at this. I think I drank because of you. I just got a revelation. We'll discuss that on the way home for another 8 hours in the car by the time we get home. What?
Doesn't work anymore. I'm an Al-Anon.
Wait a minute. Yeah, there's no crosstalk at the meetings. I was never, ever, ever without a drink in my hand. It took me to places I couldn't believe. I got down to 111 pounds. I looked like a Jewish dart. Oh, I got to tell you, I was once driving in those days, I was driving on the Sunset Strip, and there was 3 lanes of traffic, and we all stopped at a red light. Two cars next to me. And I took a look, and we all looked like Gabe Kaplan in Welcome Back, Kotter. We all had big afros and a mustache down here, wearing a lot of love beads, baby. And we looked at each other at the red light, and we went, yeah, man, like, right on, baby, keep it, yeah. And then, drove and closed one eye to try to get the lines straight, Now I'm going to fast forward. From that day on the ship, I was never, ever without a drink in my hand until 1987. Ever. I lost the love and respect of my wife, who used to be my best friend. My best friend. My daughter and I grew up together because, as an actor, you don't work a lot. You don't have a place to go. So I used to wake her up and dress her and feed her breakfast and take her to school and then pick her up from school and take her to eat. We were best friends. Well, after a while, she couldn't look me in the eye anymore. One Halloween, it's going to be an anniversary soon. One Halloween, I was driving my daughter, Jenny, and 4 of her friends to Beverly Hills, where you get the good stuff. And I was loaded, of course, with kids in the car, and I stopped short on Beverly Drive because I thought I saw a ghost run in front of my car. Naturally, schmuck. It was a kid dressed like a ghost. It's Halloween. And I stopped short, and my vodka bottle rolled from underneath my seat to the back. And my daughter was so humiliated. And her friends were just, my kids started to cry. And they ran out of the car to a house and banged on the door and called my wife to come pick them up. So that's where drinking took me. Hospitals, institute. I went to the Las Encinas Hospital for the Silly. I got busted. I got busted twice in Burbank for the alphabet. I was driving after, I went to a party in Encino and I was on my way home and the cop stopped me. It was the first time I had Stolny from the freezer, like 400 proof. And the cop stopped me and he looked at the license and he said, "Hi, Mr. Brill, you seem to be weaving." And I went, "Weaving? I don't think so." Indignation, "I don't think so." And he said, "You don't have to step out of the car. Just tell me the alphabet." And I looked at Mitzi and I went, "We'll be out of this in a minute." A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. This is when you get busted if you're drunk. Can you give me another shot, officer? Yes. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, Okay, put them on. Busted twice. Okay. Now, I'm going to tell you how I got here. I'm going to fast forward. I'm going to tell you how I got here, because I don't have much time. Okay, because I got to leave for home very soon. Because I figure we'll be pulling into Studio City when the sun comes up. We'll be all right. I woke up one morning, and I didn't know who I was. Now, I had waken up a lot of times and didn't know where I was. But I woke up this one morning and didn't know who I was. And I had heard the term wet brain because I had been around some meetings. A very wonderful, wonderful lady who we were the opening act for took me to meetings because I was getting out of hand. Took me to the Beverly Hills meeting and took me to the Brentwood meeting and took me to meetings. And they were wonderful for you losers. And not for me, though, because you guys were losers. I wasn't. And I heard the term wet brain. And when I woke up this day and didn't know who I was, I got scared. Wet brain. I knew it. So I sat, got dressed, and I sat in a chair near a window, and I waited for somebody to come through the door so I could find out who I was. I looked at the pictures on the walls, and I saw the guy, me, and I saw other people, and I couldn't put it together, and I really started to cry. And I sat in this chair, and it got to be nighttime. And then Mitzi came through the door, and the whole thing hit me, who I was. It came back to me, like coming out of amnesia. And what's even worse is I knew what I was. And I said to Mitzi, "This is it. I can't do this anymore. You got to get me some help. I don't want to live this way anymore." And she gave me a strange look because she had heard that before, but this time she sensed something was different. Maybe I meant it. I meant it. And she got on the phone and she called our doctor, Dr. Taub. And she said, "Charlie, it's a miracle. Dr. Taub made a call. You're going to Cedars-Sinai tonight. There's a vacant bed. Tonight you start your detox." And I said, "Oh, thank God." And she said, "Okay, get dressed and put things in a suitcase." I had never been to a hospital. I didn't know what to put. And she said, "We're going to go tonight." Oh my God, let me stay on the phone and iron this out. And I went to the den and proceeded to drink every last drop I had hidden in every piece of clothing and smoked every joint that I ever had. Because they may not have whiskey and pot at Cedars. I don't know. Chances are they're not going to have that. Now we get in the car and we go, and I'm talking to a man at admitting, and I don't know what he said, and he put a cute little plastic bracelet here, and Mitzi leaves, and I'm alone, and I don't do good alone. I'm dependent here. I love a short Jew with freckles, and I was alone, And a nurse took me to a room, and she said, you have this room all to yourself. There's nobody in it. And you go to sleep, and tomorrow you start to detox. And I got into the room, and she closed the door, and it was dark. And I couldn't go to sleep because I didn't have stuff to put me out. And I just laid there in the bed, and I cried. And I said, how could this happen to me? I had a career going. I had a life. I had a daughter. How the hell could this happen to me? And I looked up to a God that I never believed in. Ever believed in this God. Because my God, the God I was brought up with, I used to call him the God of smote. This guy smote everything. I went to Hebrew school. It scared me, this God. A couple of people pissed him off, and he flooded the whole world. He said to a guy, man, you're all pissing me off. Build a boat. And then a lot of people, he said, run down that hill, God said, and don't look back. And a lady looked back. She was a cowlick. So I didn't believe. And I looked up to this God, and I said, I tell you what, I'm going to make you a deal. Because, you know, God always wants to make a deal with a 111-pound Jew drunk who's laying in a hospital. God waits for this. God said, what an opportunity I got here. Woo! And I said, you get me out of here, and I swear I'll be good. I won't do this again. And I laid there, and I cried, and it became daytime. And there was a knock on my hospital door. And another nurse opened it and said, listen, Charlie, we don't usually do this because you're not allowed phone calls for the first 2 weeks here. But you have an emergency phone call in Dr. Gershman's office. And I said, okay. So I put on these paper slippers and a paper robe with my tochas hanging out. And I shuffled down the hall, and I pick up the phone, and it's my agent, Eleanor. And Eleanor says, I called Mitzi. Mitzi said you were in the hospital, but you wouldn't say why. What are you doing in the hospital? And because I'm so full of it and I could lie so good, I said, Eleanor, I'm here for a rest. It never occurred to her to ask from what? You don't work. The hell are you resting for? And she said, listen, the break that we've been waiting for came in. I've been working on this now for 6 weeks, but I didn't want to tell you in case it fell through. I know you would go on a bender. They want you to be the guest star of the final episode of Hill Street Blues, the final episode. And they wrote the part for you, and it came through. Can you get out of there? And I said, I'm out now. Consider me out. I'm out of the hospital. And I said, but I think you should pick me up, Eleanor, because Mitzi's not going to like this. I've only been here like 7 hours. So she said, I'll be there in an hour and a half, and I hung the phone up, and Dr. Gershman said, I don't think this is a good idea that you leave. And I said, Gershman, I think you're jealous. You would like to be on Hill Street Blues. But there's very little chance that that's ever going to happen. And he said, listen, I can't force you to stay here. It's a voluntary thing. But would you promise me when you're finished with the show, would you come back here? And I went, absolutely. This is first on my list. When I become a big television star, I'm going to come back with the paper robe with my ass hanging out. Of course. This is what every actor dreams about this. Keep the door open for me. So I go home. And I got to tell you this because it has something to do with my story. It has everything to do with my story. The only thing I've ever been able to do in my life is act. I never finished school. I can't add a column of figures. I have no right brain. I can't do a thing with a hammer. I don't understand it. I have yellow pages I call a Gentile for any and all things like that, you know, that need fixing. The only thing I ever knew how to do was act. Ever. It got me out of Brooklyn. So I go home, and the script comes, and I kind of take a look, and whoa, yeah, this is it. This is the kind of part I've been waiting for. This is the starring role on Hill Street Blues. Whoa. And they call me from wardrobe, and I give my measurements, and 2 days later, I report to work at CBS Radford. CBS Radford. Remember now, I hadn't started to detox. And for the past 2 days, I hadn't had a drink because I really wanted to be good and be ready for this thing. So I hadn't started to detox, no drinks for 2 days. A lot of joints, no drinks. So maybe a Quaalude or two. Okay. I walk in, they show me to the dressing room. I get dressed and makeup, I walk out into the sound stage, and it is filled with hundreds and hundreds of people from the press from all over the world, not only the United States, all over the world. This is the final episode of this big show, Hill Street Blues. And they're there, they're taking interviews, they're clicking, they're from Japan, they're from all over the world. And it's loaded. And the AD takes me onto the soundstage, introduces me to Herb, the director, and Daniel J. Travanti, the star of the show. Wow. And Daniel says to me, Charlie, listen, we've been dreading this for so many years. This is the last time we're going to be together. This is the first scene of the last episode. Do you mind if we don't rehearse it, if we just shoot it and get it in the can? We're all so emotional. And I said, come on, let's go. So they give me a mark to stand on, and the scene is between Daniel and I, and the camera's on me, and he's off camera. And makeup lady gives me a couple of potchkis here, and the clapper girl comes over and goes, okay, ready? Okay. And Herb, the director, says, okay, everybody sit down from the press. Sit down. I'm not going to ask you to leave. Sit down. Everybody sit down where you are. I got to have complete quiet. Hundreds of people are sitting down. Very nice. Okay, clapper girl comes over. Okay, scene 37, take one. We got speed, action. And Daniel J. Travanti says something to me, and I do not know what the hell he's talking about. And a moment passes, and I think I'm supposed to say something. And I can't, what's he saying? And I hear, cut! Now, Herb, the director, comes over to me and says, is there a problem? Because I could lie so good. I said, yes, there's a problem. You see the photographer? See the guy there? He took a picture. The flash went off and blinded me. I lost I don't know what I'm doing here. And the director says, all right, I'm going to tell you something. And everybody else in the press, the next time you take a picture, I'm going to clear the set. Do you understand that? Guy says, yes. He never had a camera. All right, little potchkey with the makeup. Very, very nice. Okay. Comes over. Scene 32, take two. Speed. Action. Damn it, Daniel says the same thing to me that he said before. But this time I give him a great impression of the RCA Victor dog. Cut! Now Herb and Daniel J. come over to me. What's the problem? And I said, I'll tell you what the problem is. You want to know what the problem is? I'm going to tell you what the problem is. You're emotional. I'm emotional now. I realize this is the best show on television, and I'm so honored to be here. So let me have a moment, and then I'll be with you. I turn around, and I go, dear God, what the hell am I doing here? What am I supposed to say? Give me a clue. Give me a hint. Now, P.S., by the way, I'm starting to detox. The sweat is pouring out of me. It's pouring over my glasses. It's pouring from my arms. My shirt is sticking to me. The makeup looks like a mirror. I can't even see. The sweat is over my glasses. The lady comes with the tissue, does that, and the tissue is here. I lifted an arm. It was a river coming out. I'm detoxing. And now, ready? Yes, I'm ready. Okay, scene, take three. Speed, action. Now Daniel talks Swedish. Sörna förkuller na harpakuller sir. Merla sitter för niktich. Now I take a look, and everybody from the press is looking at me kind of like you're looking at me now. And I realize the one thing I ever knew how to do with my life, I can't do anymore. Because now I'm not sure why I'm here in this police station. I'm not sure that I haven't been busted again. And that I'm not in Burbank. And there's cops around. And people are looking at me like I'm supposed to say something. And I can't, I'm going out and in between real and fake. And what am I doing here? And I look and I realize I can't do this. I can't do it. Now, when I used to drive my daughter in a carpool to school over Laurel Canyon on the way home, because my life sucked, I used to put the wheel of the car a little bit towards the edge of the canyon to see what it would be like to fly over, because I had nothing to live for. And I always chickened out, and now it came to me. A voice said, Laurel Canyon, now it's time. You don't have anything. You don't have your wife. You don't have your kids. You don't have a career. You don't have anything. You are a mess, an ugly, big-nosed, 111-pound loser. So do it. And it was so clear to me. And I took a look on the sound stage, and I let out a piercing scream. Ah! And I ran off the stage to my dressing room in the middle of this show, in the middle of a scene. And I'm trying to get my shirt undone so I could change into my clothes so I can go over Laurel Canyon. It's like I had blinders on. I knew that that's what I was going to do. It was so clear to me. And I couldn't unbutton the buttons because I was shaking so much. And I ripped my shirt, and I'm crying, and the sweat is pouring over me, and I'm screaming, and I hear a knock on the door, and I go, no, nobody. And the door opens, and it's Daniel J. Travanti, the star of the show. And he comes in and he says, hey, Brill, you have a problem with alcohol or drugs? And the whole thing comes out of my throat. Daniel, you don't understand. 2 days ago, I was in Cedars, and I should have stayed there, but I didn't detox. I'm starting to, I don't know, and I feel arms around me, and it's Daniel J.'s arms around me. And he brings me to the couch in the dressing room, and he sits me down, and he kneels down, and he says, listen to me. I am a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I am now making you an honorary member. And you know what? We need a meeting right now. You stay here, as if I could go anywhere. And I'm going to get Herb, the director. I said, no, my God, no! I don't want him to know! I don't want him to know! And he said to me, listen to me, you putz. This is Herb's first sober job out of the Betty Ford Clinic. He's not even sure he can direct sober. You were sent from God here. We need you. And by the way, he said, I'm your sponsor. So sit right down there and don't move. Okay. Daniel came in. Herb, the director, came in. Keel M. came in, an actor from the show who died sober. The wardrobe lady. The makeup lady. Gaffers, cameramen. They all came in. And we sat down and we had a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous in my dressing room. I don't know what they said, but it was a meeting. Then we all held hands and we said some kind of prayer. And then Herb says, you ready? Yeah. Oh, ready for what? He said, well, you're going to go out there and finish the job. What are you, nuts? He said, shh. Daniel said, hey, I'm your sponsor. Listen to me. I'm going to make another suggestion. We go out there and we finish the job. He takes one hand. Herb takes the other. Keel is behind me. Everybody's surrounding me. We walk out into the stage. They make an announcement. Charlie Brill has a personal problem, but he's the best actor for the job. We hired him, and he's going to finish it, but we need a closed set. So we'll be glad to give you all the pictures and interviews you want later on, but we need a closed set. And they all leave murmuring, well, what happened? Did he come out of the closet? Is this a thing? I was hired for 10 days. For the entire 10 days, they drew a line for me on the stage. The script lady would come over to me with everything covered up except one sentence. She would read the sentence to me. I would try to read it back. Sometimes I could, sometimes I couldn't. I would say the sentence maybe 2, 3 times until I got it right. They would yell cut, and they would do it again for 11 hours a day. At the end of the day, Daniel J. drove me back to Cedars every single night. In the morning, he picked me up and drove me to the set. At the end of the by the way, I sucked. It was the worst television show I ever did in my life. But it was the best I ever did. I finished it. I said to Daniel at the end, Daniel, what do I tell you? I was going to go kill myself. You saved my life. How do I ever repay you? He said, okay, come with me. Took me by the hand, took me out the gate. He said, you see that house down there? The last house before you fall into water on Radford Street? It's the Radford Clubhouse. It's an AA clubhouse. You have to go there. You must go there every noon and every 8:30 at night. And I will peek in once in a while. And spiritually, I will tell you, spiritually, if I don't see you there, I will find you and beat the shit out of you. So I went, and I got a sponsor. And that was 13 years, 7 months, 2 weeks, and 2 days ago. Now, no. It's not me, it's God. Why are you applauding? I live with you. That's why. Okay, I'm going to make it real quick. This is it. I have everything I need in my life now. Mitzi and I just celebrated 40 years of marriage. My daughter is my best friend and my daughter again. And I had the opportunity to just finish 8 years on a television series in San Diego. It's the kind of a series that was like being in the witness protection program. Nobody ever saw it. But during those 8 years down in San Diego, I saw a lot of Charlie Brills come onto the set with the sweat, with the shake. In the middle of a scene, their eyes take a taxi. Taxi. I've sent them to meetings. Some of them stayed sober, some of them didn't. That's why when Bara says to me, come out to Malibu, yeah, I joke and I get lost, but I will do anything for Alcoholics Anonymous. Anything. You've given me a life that I wouldn't even dare to dream to have. I love you all. I don't know you, but I love you all. Thanks.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think. Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.